And welcome to the Men on the Path to Love podcast, the hidden difference between attention, validation, and real connection episode. I'm Bill Simpson, your host. I coach men who are rebuilding their lives and relationships after breakup or divorce, helping them understand their relationship patterns, grow into the best version of themselves, and create deeper love and real connection, showing up differently for the next chapter of their lives, so they can live the life they love. This episode is part of my continuing series on becoming the man capable of a healthy relationship. You know, a lot of men spend years chasing attention and validation without realizing why they still feel emotionally disconnected in relationships. That being said, have you ever confused attention with connection? Or have you ever thought someone wanting you, texting you, or validating you meant they were emotionally available or truly connected to you? Well, a lot of us have. And in this episode, I'm going to talk about the hidden difference between attention, validation, and real connection. Because understanding this difference can completely change the quality of your relationships and your emotional well-being. You see, early on in my own relationship journey, I remember being so insecure that any attention I got from girls or women felt like connection. Looking back now, I realized it really wasn't connection at all. It was the emotional rush I got from the attention. And for a while, I confused that rush with intimacy. But eventually, reality caught up with me. This really came to a head during my radio career. And being on the radio, women were coming on to me all the time. And honestly, at first, it was exciting. The attention fed my ego. You know, it made me feel wanted, important, and desirable. But through trial and error, I eventually realized something deeper. A lot of these women were attracted to the guy on the radio. You know, the personality, the image, the status, but not necessarily who I truly was as a human being. And I remember asking myself, man, if I wasn't on the radio, would they have given me a second thought? These women that I would consider out of my league, right? Honestly, probably not. And that realization was humbling. But it was also liberating. I felt free. Because it forced me to confront the difference between being desired versus being genuinely known, emotionally seen, and really connected to another person. And that brings me to one of my clients who I'll call Chase. Pun intended. Because Chase was always chasing attention and validation. He was the kind of guy who would walk into a club on a mission. You know, to take home the sexiest woman there. And sometimes it was someone he'd randomly see on the street. For him, it was about the conquest, the challenge, the game. And a lot of times, he succeeded. And his friends admired him for that. They hyped him up, you know. And from the outside looking in, it probably looked like he was living every guy's fantasy, right? But over time, it started catching up with him. Because no matter how many women he hooked up with, he kept feeling empty afterwards. Depressed, disconnected. Because there was no real intimacy, no emotional closeness, no meaningful connection. It was just temporary validation followed by this emptiness, this emotional emptiness. And that's when Chase came to me. He had reached a vulnerable point in his life where he knew something needed to change, but he didn't know where to start. And frankly, I appreciated his openness and honesty. But the truth is, Chase wasn't alone. A lot of men experience this. Part of it comes from our conditioning. Many of us were raised to believe their value comes from how they perform. Their status, their conquest, their sexual success, or some kind of external approval. We were often taught, whether it was directly or indirectly, that being wanted equals worthiness. And man, social media, it just amplifies this. Attention becomes the currency, and validation becomes addictive. And also, underneath that conditioning is often our insecurity and fear. The fear of being vulnerable, the fear of rejection, the fear of not being enough without the attention or the image or that external validation I mentioned. And sometimes men chase attention because slowing down long enough for that genuine intimacy feels awkward, it feels uncomfortable, or even unsafe emotionally. And for some men, there may also be attachment wounds, loneliness, past heartbreak, or emotional neglect. Any of those can contribute to this cycle. So I told Chase something important. I told him that it made sense to me why he felt empty. Because attention without emotional connection eventually leaves the heart starving. And with Chase hearing that, we got to work. For 6 months, we focused on helping him understand what real connection actually means. Not performance, not conquest, not validation, but real connection. And it started with learning how to connect with himself first, through self-awareness, self-compassion, and emotional honesty. We worked on creating emotional safety within himself and in his relationships. We practiced empathy, mindful communication, vulnerability, emotional regulation, and learning how to truly listen instead of performing or getting defensive. And over time, something incredible happened, man. Chase transformed. Yeah, man, he was no longer Chase the conqueror. No, man, now he had become this grounded, emotionally aware man capable of genuine intimacy and authentic relationship. He was a man who no longer needed validation to feel valuable. He was a man now capable of attracting and sustaining a healthy relationship. So hopefully you're beginning to see the deeper difference between attention, validation, and real connection. Now, let's go a little bit deeper from a psychological and research-based perspective. All right? Research in attachment theory shows that emotionally secure relationships are built on responsiveness, trust, vulnerability, and consistency, not just attraction or attention. Psychologist Dr. Sue Johnson, the founder of emotionally focused therapy, explains that humans are wired for emotional bonding and secure attachment. What we truly crave is emotional safety and connection. Meanwhile, studies on validation and reward systems show that external attention activates dopamine in the brain. It's that same reward chemical linked to addicted behaviors. So that's why attention and validation can feel exciting in the moment, but often fade quickly afterward. Yeah, real connection is different. Real connection creates emotional nourishment, I'll say, emotional security, a sense of calmness, a sense of belonging, and authenticity. Attention says, I notice you. Validation says, you make me feel good about myself. But real connection says, I see you. I understand you. I feel emotionally safe with you. And that's a completely different experience. So how can men begin recognizing the difference and start shifting toward a healthier connection. I'm going to give you a few things to reflect on, some questions to ask yourself, like, do I feel emotionally fulfilled after my interactions, or is it just temporarily that boost that I feel? Am I seeking approval or genuine intimacy? It's asking yourself, do I feel safe being emotionally honest with this person? Can I be fully myself without having to perform? And most importantly, am I connected to myself? Because men who are disconnected from themselves often seek external attention to fill that internal void. And real connection starts from within. So I'm going to give you a few practical ways that you can begin making this shift. Some I've already mentioned. Practicing self-awareness instead of being distracted by other things, the shiny objects, all that. It's building an emotional vocabulary and being emotionally honest. It's learning to tolerate, not only tolerate, but embrace vulnerability instead of avoiding it. It's focusing on meaningful conversations instead of this, surface, superficial validation. It's also slowing down emotionally and how you relate to others. Yeah, pay attention to how people make you feel after you interact with them, not just during the excitement. And develop your self-worth that isn't dependent on attention or approval. Because at the end of the day, attention may feed your ego temporarily, but real connection, man, that feeds your soul. And listen, if you need support with this journey, whether it's healing after a divorce, rebuilding after a breakup or divorce, overcoming feeling emotionally disconnected, or just becoming the man capable of a healthy relationship, then please visit my website, menonthepathtolove.com. There are resources there for you and coaching options as well. That's menonthepathtolove.com. All right, it is Quote of the Week time, and this one comes from psychologist and relationship expert Esther Perel, who I've quoted before. She says, quote, "Attention is not the same thing as love, and validation is not the same thing as intimacy," unquote. And I'm going to add to that and finish this quote by saying, not only is attention not the same thing as love and validation is not the same thing as intimacy, real connection happens when two people feel safe enough to truly be themselves. And that will do it for another episode of the Men on the Path to Love podcast, the hidden difference between attention, validation, and real connection episode. My name is Bill Simpson. Thank you for listening. Now, coming up on the next episode of the Men on the Path to Love podcast, as I continue my series on becoming the man capable of a healthy relationship, I want to talk about something I've touched on before, but I want to go much deeper into it because so many relationships slowly fade away, not from one big moment, but from repeated emotional habits people don't even realize they're bringing to the relationship. Things like defensiveness, emotional avoidance, shutting down, criticism, resentment, poor communication, and being emotionally inconsistent. So here's a question for you to think about. Could some of your relationship struggles actually be connected to emotional habits you learned long before your relationship even began? Yeah, give that some thought. And please join me for the Emotional Habits That Quietly Destroy Relationships episode. And if this episode you're listening to right now spoke to you, then please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Share the link and share the love. And until next time, keep your heart open and stay on the path to love.